Weil Imishum Ho ist es nicht anders von alle Isuri HaTorah. Then it's not different than all other prohibition of the Torah. Why does here the Torah write it in a way of Loisuchal? All the time. If you're not allowed to do it, you're not able to do it. Und der Fahr was noting gezählte Erter Aser Teure mit dem Loschen Leisuchel. The fact that it's only in a numbered of places the Torah makes a prohibition with the language of Leisuchel not able to Kiyetzavai or similar is move on. So there it's understood as the efshori suton them isur. So then that the impossibility to do the isur is nit mitzadam tzivu. It's not because of the command, nor mitzad an ander tzivu. There's another reason why you can't do it. It's not that the command here tells you that you can't do it, because otherwise this would not be only in a few places. Everywhere you can't do it because it's prohibited. So why are things not able to be done outside of the prohibition? So that's why the Torah says leisuchal, that you're not able to do it. So und das kann sein if kamen. So this can be in several ways. Uladugma, for example. Aleph, es is aza inyan was noch dem wie Torah aser die Sach, kenner die Sach nicht öfter. That it's something that after the prohibition takes place, so that takes away from him the possibility to accomplish it, which means you're not able to do it after the prohibition. For example, Kamoy, lo yuchal levakid es ben ha'ahuva goimer. You cannot make the son of the one you love to make him the Bechor instead of the son of the wife you hate, who is the real Bechor. You can't make the son of the the wife you love, you can't make him the Bechor. So over there, afilu ben der Av will mevaker sein dem ben ha'ahuva. The father he wants to make his son the Bechor. Wird nicht kein Bechor, he doesn't become a Bechor. It's not going to help him what he wants. Or when it says loy shuchal lishacho goimer, that he's not able to, so that means afilo ibeshikter avek, that even if he does send her away, he has to take her back. So that means he's not able to accomplish what he wants to do. Then it's lo yuchal. That's one scenario. Another case would be based azachbos is nitolui b'ritzoyne, something which is not up to what you want or not. Ukamoi, for example, loisuchal liris esponai, you are not able to see my face. You're not allowed to, but you're not able. Kiloyir oni ha'odom v'chai, because nobody can see me and stay alive. So you're not allowed to, but you're also not able to. It doesn't matter that you want to, but you cannot. It's not possible. Or another example, "Leitucha loses alecha ish nochri." You're not allowed to, you're not able to put a non-Jew as the king, vile. But the Torah is the noch mamshich, because as the Torah continues, v'hoyo kishivte al kisim mamlachte, when he will sit, the appointed king, on the throne of his kingdom, because of loyas mishnah haTorah goimer, and he will write this repetition of the Torah repetition goimer, the second Torah, have a Torah by him. That will be with him, and he'll read in it all the days of his life. Lishmer is called Divrei HaTorah Zois Gomer, to keep all the words of the Torah. Was das als is umeglach. So it's impossible to have all this by an ish nochri asher lo yochicho, by a man, a strange man, a non-Jewish who's not your brother. He doesn't have the Torah and he can't write it, and it's not going to be to keep all the words of the Torah. It's not applicable to a nochri. So it's not able because you it's not allowed to, because you're not able, because he can't do what needs to be done. Well, derech zeh does it state by Moshe, similar to what says by Moshe, lo uchal oid lotzis v'love. I'm not able to go in and out anymore. V'bald as nitlo mimeni hodishus v'nitlo leYeshua. It's not up to him because it's the permission has been taken away from Moshe and given to Yeshua. So it's not going to help him. It's not up to him. It's doch nit biyodov shel Moshe lotzis v'love. It's not up to Moshe to go in or go out. It's been taken away. We have already given over that permission to Yeshua. Is doch zugenommen von Moshe der Efshorius auf lotzis v'love. So Moshe didn't have a possibility to go in and out because he doesn't have the right to it. So the first example the Rebbe gave is a situation which after the Torah prohibited, it's not going to help you because you can't make him for a bechor and you can't send her away because you have to take it away. It's not going to help you. The other thing is, it's not up to the person. It's something which he's not able to because either is not fitting to it because a person can't see Hashem and live, or you can't write the Sefer Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu cannot keep on leading because he doesn't have the right to it. So that means not able to. And now, number three, if it's a case that you've already been instructed about before, B'shas mishoin frier gimel, angezog geworden nit zu tun azach, when you have already been previously instructed not to do something. As the noch, so after being already instructing, it fits afterwards the lotion loy suchal, that you're not able, that you cannot do it. Ukamoi lo yuchal lalis el har Sinai. You're not able to go up to Mount Sinai because you've already warned us. So we're not able to because of the fact that we've already had an instruction to do so. Kil Rosh and Rashi, as Rashi says, as Eden seinen Shein of them Musrim v'Evdim. They have been already warned, and they were already standing under that warning of not going to the mountain. So we're not able to because of a previous prohibition. Or that you cannot check the Pesach in Yerushalayim, not in Yerushalayim, just in one of your cities, in one of your gates, one of your cities. It's also not up to the person in that case because it's up to the Kohen, so he's not able, but there's already a prohibition. To bring the Pesach isn't just dependent on the person. You need to have the Kohen who brings it, which is in the second category, which is not up to you, so it could be you're not able to. But in addition to that is that Isur zu Makriv Zayin Akorban Bechutz, and the number three situation, this is the prohibition of bringing a korban outside. It already says earlier, it says Shama Tovviyu Goimer. So when we're talking about korbanos cannot be brought. That we know already you can't do outside from previously. To the place where Hashem chooses, the Beis Hamikdash, that's where you bring the oilus and zivchechem, the korbanos. There is a prohibition against bringing oilesecha and all places. So there's already a prohibition against it. So it fits to say loi tzuchal. You're not able to because you already have a prohibition on you. Loi tzuchal lihis alim. it says not able to look away. Already in the beginning of this subject, it says Leitira Goimer Visalamto Goimer. Don't see, and then you'll look away and you'll make yourself not seeing. You're not allowed to do that. One of them is the Torah Messiah, then the Torah concludes. You're not able to be mitalem, to look away, because you've already been commanded not to look away. So these are the three possibilities that the Rebbe gives, three types of things in which it fits to say you're not able to. Because you're not able to, either as a number three, because you've already been commanded on it, so you're not able to that. Either it's something which is not up to you, you're not able to because it doesn't help what you want to do, it's up to somebody else. Or you're not able to because you can't accomplish what you desire, because it's just now you can't make a b'choira, you can't send away because it doesn't help what you're doing. That's when loy suchal, we understand, means not allowed to under this condition. But if the Torah just wants to tell you, and it never told you that it's asur, and just tells you you're not allowed to, you're not able to, it's not the not able, as the Rebbe began, it's not that the prohibition makes it not able to. It needs to be not able to because of prior prohibition, or it's not up to you, or it's something which isn't going to help you. But to start saying you're not able to because Torah prohibits it now, it doesn't really fit to start off with not able to, because otherwise it's by all the mitzvahs you're not able to, because the Torah prohibits it by all prohibitions. So that's why Rashi has to be mechadish here. The Rebbe continues in Siman Daled that here this is the first time that seems like we're introducing the prohibition of not to eat the meiser outside of Yerushalayim. How are we saying leisucha Daled? Based on this, we understand the novelty from unser posik leitucha lechel b'sharecha goimer. You're not able to eat b'sharecha. What is the novelty over here that Rashi has to stop and say? Beniden de dan is noch nit gestanden as b'sharecha tormen nit essen meiser goimer u'v'chetus b'korcha goimer v'chol dorecha goimer u'trumas edacha. It has not been said before that the meiser, or the firstborn of the cattle, or all the promises and the truma, it didn't say yet before. As is nor gestanden, the prohibition, and the Rebbe will ask in a minute, but the positive it did say, but the prohibition against eating these meiser and the chondorecha, yeah, korbanos cannot be brought outside, but not that they cannot be eaten outside. That has not yet been brought down. All of these prohibition, the meiser, the bechidus bekorcha, the chondorecha, that you can't eat it outside Yerushalayim, has not yet been written. As in the lav pentale lesachem chomokim gomer. It only said the prohibition that you're not allowed to bring it up, and you were not about eating. So it turns out, as der Isser Achila wird melchatchila angesagt mit dem Lashon leituchal. So it turns out that the prohibition of eating, to begin with, is instructed by saying you're not able to. And the Far stellt sich Rashi da up on his mechadish. That's why Rashi stops here and comes up with the idea, Yochelato, Avalein Choreshoy. You're actually able to, but you're not allowed to, meaning even as Oich in Azab Fall, even in such a case, pas the loshon loisuchal. It still fits the language of you're not able to, even though this is the first time we have the prohibition. Vibald as der Isur hatoira gufa is shoylo the meglichkeit zu tun die Sache. Because that actually prohibition of the Torah negates us from doing it, so it's still called loisuchal. Originally, we were thinking only if there's something else, like one of the three situations that the Rebbe brought down before, but not when the prohibition creates the honorability. And this tells us no. The Rebbe is not satisfied with this explanation because das ist aber nicht abir maspik. First of all, the Rebbe wants to know how would this be a proof from the Yevusim, where their inability came from something that happened before. How are we proving that when you start off a new prohibition, you can say loisuchal, aleph. Lifizei is doch ein haraya doimel linida. According to this, the proof from the Yevusim is not similar to the case. In the dogma from Versa Yevusi lo yochlu goimer lo rishon, the example that Rashi brings that the Yevusi, they weren't able to chase them out. And Rashi says, they were able to, but they weren't allowed to. Is there Isur nit ongezogen geworden mit den Loschen lo yichlu von dem Posik, lo yochlu. That prohibition has not been transmitted with the language lo yochlu. This is not the first word they're saying they're not allowed to hear. The Posik is not von dem Posik. No, das kommt mit der friedige Schwur. Das kommt because the previous Schwur from the past. So how could, here we're trying to say that even when it's lo yochlu, meaning that lo suchal means that it's only the prohibition that we're learning about it now. Still, you're not able to because of the prohibition. How is this approved by the Yevusi? They weren't able to because of the previous Shvuah. So that wouldn't be a riot. Number two, that even though there's no prohibition beforehand, but there is a mitzvah saseh beforehand. So why can't we say it's very simple, like all the other cases that you're not allowed to? Torah says you have to eat it there, and you're not able to because of the mitzvah saseh. Afal pi as alav mefurush es meiser v'chulu b'chutz, that the clear love to eat the meiser outside, giving manit frir in the Torah, we don't find earlier in the Torah. Weismensch ein aber dem Isur von afrir diken tzivui b'l'shoin asay. But we know already, it's no law, but we know about the prohibition from a previous tzivui in the language of a positive. Vaveisem shoma v'chaltem shom, bring it there and eat there. Azoy as der loisuchal do. So then this loisuchal is nicht anders l'chayre von the andere Erter in Torah. It seems that it's not different than the other places of the Torah. Wo der loisuchal steht bescheiches zu an Isur, was ist schon angesagt früher. It says this loisuchal is already in the other cases that you're not able to because it's already been prohibited. That was here too. It wasn't prohibited in a lav, but it was prohibited in a nesa. So why can't we just say lo sucha like everywhere else? So there's no chiddush over here. And gimel, and number three, v'bald lo sucha is soif masim bayedin lav. Since at the end of the day, now we're saying that lo sucha fits by every lav take because of the prohibition makes the situation that you're not able to. If avos nutz Torah dem loshon leisuchal davke by dem lav, so why does the Torah also only say leisuchal by this prohibition? So the Rebbe says that this explanation doesn't really satisfy the question, and I think it's interesting that The Rebbe now is going to give us a whole different explanation. Uh, it's not that he's going to build on this explanation, but the Rebbe is going to give us another explanation why over here the Torah uses the lotion of leisuchal, because there's sometimes a case which you might think that you should still be doing something, but you're still not able to do so because the Torah tells you you're not able to, as the Rebbe will explain later on. But it looks like that would be like a totally different explanation versus the explanation the Rebbe gives now. Now the Rebbe gave the explanation that loy suchal means not able when there is a previous prohibition or other situation which don't allow you. But over here, the Rebbe says, if that was the case, first of all, it's also not allowed because of the Esa. And why does the Torah, number two, and why does the Torah use language of leisuchal? And then what would there be the example from the Yevusi, which was also based on before? So we have to come up with another answer. The Rebbe is going to explain now, based on the previous Rashi, the Rebbe is going to show that the beginning of the Rashi, and this is the Hemshech, which explains, the Rebbe first will explain the Rashi before Litin Loisa Sales, and then he will explain the second part. Hey, wird man das verstehen, behagdim Mabiur, in dem ersten Dibur von Rashi b'Pasuk Zeh. We'll understand it by first introducing the explanation of Rashi in this Pasuk. It says, Leisuchal, the first Rashi says, what means Leisuchal? Ba'akosuv liten loisase aladover, that the Pasuk came to give us a prohibition on this matter of not eating all of the Maaseh b'Chodesh B'Korcha outside of Yerushalayim, that there is a prohibition. And the Rebbe points out that this language in this Rashi is different than the other Rashis, where also Rashi is saying that there is a prohibition. Here there is a lengthy Loshen in Rashi. Dem Loshen litten loisas achulu zogt Rashi noch drei Erte beparshasenu besmiches zu unser Posik. This Rashi says it in three more places in our parsha, which is close to our pasuk. Aleph, in the pasuk, Yishomer l'cha pentala elisecha b'chol mokem asher tira. It warns you, be careful not to bring the offering of the oilos in everywhere that you see, meaning you have to bring him in Yerushalayim, not to bring him elsewhere. So Rashi says, liten loy sase aladover, to give you a prohibition, even though there is already a positive mitzvah to bring it to Yerushalayim. Here it's coming to tell you it's a prohibition. And the second time is it says, Shomer lecha pentaziv es halevi, be warned so not to neglect the Levi, to give him the meiser that he deserves, liten loisa saladover, to give you a prohibition on it, even though we already know the Torah says to give it to him, to the Levi, but this is a prohibition. And number three, it's Eskol Hadovar Shanoichi Mitzav Goimer Tishma Lasis. Everything that I have instructed you, you should keep. So the word Shomer is alav, be careful. Litan loisase al esa hamurim beparsha. This is giving a loisase for all the S's that are in the parsha. So this is something which we see many times in the parsha, that there is a loisas on top of the esa. But dafki in unser posik is Rashi Meidich B'Lashoinei. But it is specifically in our posik, Rashi prolongs the language as bo hakosuv. The pasuk is coming liten loisas aladover, to give you a loisasa. Why is the Rashi adding here? The pasuk is coming to tell you the loisasa against not against eating and or not bringing it to Yerushalayim. So the Rebbe explains that over here there is a additional point that Rashi wants to make, in where there's nothing else but only the loisase, versus the other places there is other things. Let's look inside. The Shlemer Rabir was the Pashtus in the andere drei Erter, in the other three places, is their posuk nit oisum bloisum oisu zayna loisase. The verse is not out intending only to add the prohibition. As einem voran noch chidushim in the psukim. There are other novelties. It's not the only thing. It's not boha kosu the only thing. By us, it's the only thing. Aleph. In the first one is shomer pentala lesachem chol mokum ashetira. Not to be careful not to bring the oilus everywhere you see, which means asher yale belibcha. That is what you are on your own. Avalato makriv al pinovi chulu. Pirush Rashi, as Rashi says, but you could bring al pinovi. So the pasuk has an additional information here that the prohibition only applies by yourself from your heart, but not from a novi. That's an addition. Besides a loisus that gives you some clarification. Base in the second, Shomlucha Pentazi Vesalevi Kol Yomecha Lad Mosecha. Be very careful not to neglect the Levi all your days on your land. So the pasuk says Al Ad Mosecha, that when do we give the Levi the special attention? It's only in the land. Abel Begoila. Ein Chamuzar Olav Yeser Mani Yisrael. But in the exile, you have no special warning for the Levi more than the rest of the poor people of the Jewish people, Pirush Rashi. So there's some more information here too, besides just the prohibition. And number three, as Kol Hadover Goymer Tishvuru says, you should keep all of it. And we say, also not allowed to add and not to take away. So these are additional. So besides just having a lav here, you have some more information in this. But in our pasuk, leisuchal is bo hakosuf litan loisa saladova. This is all what the pasuk is coming to do, is to give us a prohibition of this matter. The pasuk kumt mer nit vitzumeisiv zan loisase. That's all what it's coming to, is to add the loisas. So that's what Rashi says. But why is Rashi oberho gufa darf hoben abiyur? But this itself, you need to explain. So what difference does it make, the emphasis, as the ganze kavana from Posik is litten loisasa? Why is Rashi trying to tell us here that this Posik, all what it's doing is to give a loisasa? And the river is the river mistaber loimar. So therefore, it's logical to say, as do muzman hoben dem loisasa, that here we need a loisasa, nit wie in andere Erter, nor zu mesu sein nechomer adover in enish v'chulu. Not like in all other places where the loisasa is just adding to the seriousness of the matter. The punishment is increased. Benitten de do ni doas bitzella had goshe in the beferish and love. In our case, there is a special emphasis that there is a special prohibition. Not just to add, there's emphasis on the far is doiv demakosov meyuchad, and that's why we have a special pasuk to give you a lav, to make you a lav over here. What is this about this pasuk that gives you a lav specifically about the Meiser de Gondcha? And the Rebbe explains, because over here there's a mitzvah of eating the kachim. And one can think, if you can't eat the kachim and in Yerushalayim, maybe eat them wherever you can. There's still a mitzvah. So what's the explanation? We're talking about meiser and kachim. Is a mitzvah. To eat them is a mitzvah. The Rebbe wrote, you can't main, and therefore you might have thought in Limud Adarach Hapshat, when you learn according to the simple meaning, as those was is do at sivu zeit zu bringen und essen in Yerushalayim, the fact that there is a command to bring them and eat them in Yerushalayim is thus a mitzvah neisefes if mitzvahs achilas meiser v'koshim chulu b'chlal. It's an additional mitzvah. You have to eat the meiser and the koshim is one mitzvah, and the additional mitzvah is to eat in Yerushalayim. B'chlal. Das heißt, wird gesagt, as das seinen zwei mitzvahs. We would say there's two mitzvahs. One mitzvah to eat the kochim, the meiser, another mitzvah where you eat it. Welche seinen nicht totally in the zweiter. They're not hinges. Not you can only eat it if you can eat in Yerushalayim. There's one mitzvah to eat it. Aleph achilas meiser v'kochim to eat meiser and kochim. And Beis, number two, achilas and Yerushalayim to eat in Yerushalayim. B'mokom ha'shivchar Hashem, the place where Hashem chooses. V'lochein, and therefore we would conclude. It is an onus and can it essen sein meister of the kochim chulu in Yerushalayim. If somebody is against his will, he's not able to eat meiser kochim in Yerushalayim. There would have been a thought, Loimer, to say, as can, that he's allowed to, he's able to. He must eat them in the place. He has no choice. He's an onus. It's against his will, but he can't get to Yerushalayim. So the mitzvah at least he should fulfill the mitzvah of eating the mice and the kosher. So here the pasuk is telling you the emphasis is the loisas adavar. As achila b'Yerushalayim is not a mitzvah neisefes. It's not an additional mitzvah, nor is that naile kuva. But this is a condition which is to prevent that you can't eat it out there. The only place to eat is Yerushalayim. It's not a mitzvah to say to eat them and then not to eat it out of Yerushalayim, but there is no eating period if it's not in Yerushalayim. And this is the hemshech in Pirush Rashi. Now we understand the continuation of Rashi. No, then there is mefarish. After Rashi explains that the kavona klolus and the posik is that the general intent of the verse is to give us the prohibition on this matter that there is no kachim outside of Yerushalayim, even though there is a mitzvah. Is that mefarish the Verte Rashi explains lo yisuchal, that you're not able to, which means Rashi says yochilato aval eincho reshoyi. You are able to, but you're not allowed to. We're able to references. You're able to because there's a mitzvah of eating it, but you're not allowed to because the Torah prohibits it. Since we know that the Torah has given a prohibition and said no way to eat it, there's no eating. The Torah sagt on dem Isur b'loshen lo yisuchal. Why the Torah instructs us this in the language of lo yisuchal? Babir was it. Now we understand why it says lo yisuchal. What's the explanation? Mit yochel ato meint Rashi. So when it says here yochel ato, doesn't mean you have the ability physically. Yochel ato, what Rashi wants to say, there is a possibility because there is a mitzvah. Meint Rashi nit nor the gashmis the kiyechelis. It doesn't mean just the physical possibility to essen chutz to the Yerushalayim. The Michael Mashmalot, that's what is there to tell you that you can, but this is nothing that, but you're able to nor the mitzvah yechelis. You can eat it and sort of have the mitzvah of eating meiser. So essen bisharecho mitzad svora now from the mitzvah nachilas meiser v'kochim chulu kenal. That's because you're able to, because you're going to do a mitzvah. It's not just you're able to eat. You can do a mitzvah because you're going to be eating meiser kochim, as we said earlier. One of them is the posik mechadish, and the posik comes up and says lo yisuchal ein charashoyi. The azhore is shoylel the mitzvah yichelis. You're not able to mean you don't have the mitzvah possibility, which means you have a mitzvah of achilas kochim. Lo yisuchal, you're not able to do that. Das heißt mit dem lav is der posik mechadish, that what the Torah is novelty of this lav as chutz li Yerushalayim is nito the mitzvah of achilas meiser v'kochim. that outside Yerushalayim there is no mitzvah of eating meiser on kosher, and therefore is yochelato. No, the leisuchal. You're not able to. You can't. There is nothing. There's no mitzvah at all. Al pizevet men euch verstehen, favos Rashi bringt the dogma dafke from the Nevi'im. Why Rashi brings specifically the example from the Nevi'im? Vesay vusi gomer. Weil dafke dorten is as behesem zum chiddush in unser posuk, because dafke there it fits that chiddush in our posuk, which means that there is an ability and there should be an allowance, and you're not allowed to. Zu koiver sein Yevusi Yoshe Yerushalayim is l'cheredu atzibui. To conquer the Yevusi, those who settle in Yerushalayim, seemingly there is a command. V'yirashtem is called Yoshe Oris. The Torah says all the nations that live in the land you should chase out v'yishaptem bo, v'yisnachaltem es Oris, and you shall settle it, and you should inherit the land. Eben Mele is there Yecholim Hoyu. So what does it mean that they were able to? We're not only talking about physically, they were strong enough. That they were able to because there was a mitzvah over there. There was a command, not just the physical strength, they had the ability, nor mitzatzivu Hashem, they were command of Hashem, they should have the those bavorim the Torah. And this the Torah cautions us as mitzad der shavua is lo yochlu laharisham, that because of the shavua they're not able to sheinam rashoim, they're not allowed to. This haste as der lo yochlu einam rashoim. Why aren't they allowed to? Why are they not able to? Is because of this promise, but otherwise they should. Is mitzad der shavua, which means that tzivui from kibush haaretz is melachatchila nitchal benegei tzivusi. That means that to begin with, they're not able to. It never applied to them because of the command of kibush haaretz, and it didn't apply to the yivusi. And that's why, just like we're saying by us, there is no mitzvah at all of eating it unless it's done in Yerushalayim. Over here, because of the shvuah, there is no leituchal. There is never a mitzvah of kol yeshve haaretz. It doesn't apply to them. Al derech didn't the dan was leisuchal lechel b'sharecha is megala, that when you can't eat, it reveals as b'sharecha is nitod the mitzvah and achilas ma'isa v'chulu, that there's no mitzvah of achilas ma'isa. The reason why we bring down this example from the Yevusi, because over there, even though there may seem to be a command to chase them out, and yet the pasuk is saying leisuchal because of the promise. You're not able to, like over here by kochim, by the meiser and the b'chaydes b'karcha, where you might have a thinking that there's a mitzvah to eat it, but we're saying if you're not eating it in Yerushalayim, there's no mitzvah. But how does this make sense? That a command of the Torah, which came after, later should not be restricted by the Gevonim, by the Shvuah. How could we say that overrides the mitzvah of the Torah? And now the Rebbe will explain why Rashi says about the Shvuah of the to Moras Machpelah, but to the Bnei Ches, because over there it was associated with a Chilul Hashem, which we don't have so much by Avimelech. Zayin, Lechere ist aber den Ganzen nicht verstandig. It seems totally not understood. Wie kann man sagen, how could you say, as mitzad der Shvuah zu the Bnei Ches, that because of the Shvuah to the Bnei Ches soll nicht chal sein Tzivu Hashem, so the command of Hashem should not apply to einem ganz Eretz Yisrael, to conquer all of Eretz Yisrael. Adrabah. On the contrary, that Tzivui Hashem la'achri Matan Torah, when Hashem, after Matan Torah, commanded to inherit all of Eretz Yisrael, that should negate that obligation that came from the Shvuah that preceded it. So how do we say that it's not? Torah says they said lo yuchal that they're not able to because of the shvu. It doesn't apply. We're actually saying that the Torah command, which says everybody, doesn't really apply because they have a shvu before. Is the beer in them? Afal piyas mitzada dino de shvu nidgat kentukev. Even though halachically, because of the law, it didn't have a force. Mitzadam tzivu Hashem to kovis Eretz Yisrael, because of the command of the Eberster to conquer Israel. Von deswegen, but still. Well, it didn't really have a force. Von deswegen, wie bald das Lividas hayevusim hat die Schwur ja gehabt hat, according to their opinion, it did have force. Is ob Eden wollten sich nicht gerechnet mit der Schwur. If the Yidden would not consider that Schwur, wollte er rausgekommen, Achil Hashem. It would have been a big Chil Hashem, because they thought that the Shvu does exist. Und der Riber lo yochlu rishom she'enu rashoim. And that's why they weren't able to, because they weren't permitted. Weil mitzad dem inyan Chil Hashem, because of the Chil Hashem, zechidin gefiert keilu with the Shvu HaToikef. They conduct themselves as if it has a force, even though by right mitzad din it didn't have a force. This is al derech similar to the Gevonim. We make it by the Gevonim. Was vayichas lahem bris lachayosom vayishbuhu gomer. They formed a covenant to allow them to live, and they swore to them. They tricked them, and they said that they made a covenant. Under they weren't able to touch them. As afal pilos loichay l'shvu layu klal, even though the shvua didn't rest at them at all. But the Gevonim is genart Eden because they cheated the Jews. They didn't. They misrepresented themselves. But yet, von deswegen loy katlinu mishum kedus Hashem, because of the sanctity of the name of Hashem, they did not kill them. So you see that even though al pi halacha it doesn't apply, but if there's an issue of chilul Hashem, you can't do it. So based on this, we'll understand why Rashi brings down the shvuah of Avraham versus the shvuah to Avimelech, a shvuah to Bnei Ches by Moras Machpelo. The Apizesh the bar of Rashi's mefaras the shvuah is not the shvuahs Avraham Lavimelech. It's not the shvuah of Avraham to Avimelech, nor the krisus bris, but the forming of the covenant Kshulokach mehem Moras Machpelo, when he took the Moras Machpelo. But this is noch mer magdim the chilul Hashem shebedover, because that increases the desecration of Hashem's name if they would violate this covenant that they made when Avram bought the Moras Machpelah. When Eden wollte sich nicht geführt al wie die Schwur, if the Eden would not follow the Schwur. Leut der krisis bris mit Bnei Ches, according to that covenant that they made with Bnei Ches, is that Heder HaKibush from Yerushalayim, so then the not conquering of Yerushalayim via Atnai in Kinyan for Moras Machpelah, that's almost a condition that it's only going to have the Moras Machpelah if they're not going to conquer Yerushalayim. So it turns out if they don't listen to that covenant, as wenn es wollt nicht abgeht geworden, the Shvur, if this Shvur would not been observed, wollt Ledasa Yevusim, so according to their view, Bottle geworden Lemafreya, Kinyan Shel Avram Moras Machpelah, then it would have been negated to begin with the purchase of Moras Machpelah, because if the purchase of Moras Machpelah is based on fulfilling this condition, if they don't fulfill the condition, then there's no sale in the first place, in their view. Ubemela, as the obvious vimos and given kvurim bekevil Elohem. So it means that the fathers and the foremothers are buried in a grave doesn't belong to them because of the fact that they didn't keep the condition. Und zu versporen dem Chilul Hashem, and in order to save us from this desecration of the name of Hashem, as the Yevusim wollen sagen, as Eden Artnit, that the Yevusim will say the Jews don't care at the Ovis v'Imois and Kvurim b'Kevel Elohem, that the fathers and the mothers are buried not in there, it doesn't belong to them because they never fulfilled their stipulation of the condition not to conquer the land of the Yevusi of Yerushalayim is lo yochel rishon. They weren't able to inherit them. So the reason here is specifically because of the Chilul Hashem, because of what it appears to them, and that's why the Yidden couldn't uh, conquer it. And the same reason is uh, why Leisuchal is to say that uh, even though you seem like you can do a mitzvah, you're still not allowed to do that. So the Rebbe Bos continues explaining on the Rashi, the next last part in the Rashi, but Rashi is still bothered uh, uh, if that's the case, how come the Yidden did actually conquer the land? At the end, it's a Chil Hashem. They didn't listen. And Rashi must explain that they got rid of the Chil Hashem by getting rid of those two. That's what Rashi brings down the rest of the pasuk to tell us that there's no more Chil Hashem because once the writing is gone, the Ksav is gone, so that takes away the Chil Hashem as well. Ches. Rashi can Rashi cannot be satisfied with that alone. But the Ben Chumash lemikra v'etoch fragen because the 5-year-old will ask, who's learning Chumash, since because of the Chil Hashem they were not permitted to conquer the land of the Yevusi, is viot bendos soif soif zugenommen. How did they end up taking it away from them? Rashi has to conclude. That's what the pasuk says. Ki im hesircho ha'ivrim v'hapischim. To remove those idols, the ivrim and the pischim, the blind and the limping. Those are the idols. Slomim shekos v'lemes hashvua. Those salems that they wrote the oath on them. David HaMelech hat zugenommen die Tzlomim, welchen es ist geschrieben geworden, die Shvua. David HaMelech took away those salems on which the Shvua was written. Azoya Rum is bottle geworden der Zikorim von der Shavua. That way, the memory of this Shavua was negated. Okay, moving bepashtus, that this is self-understood. As noch dem bis schon durch Berg 800 Jahre von der Christus bris mit der Bnei Ches. After 800 years have already passed from the time they made the covenant with the Bnei Ches, hat man gering gekannt bottle machen dem Zikorim. It was very easy to negate their memory und der Shvua from that oath durch Meise sein die Tzloimim shekos v'leim es Shvua by removing the tzelems on which they wrote that Shvua. Und das ist der Diuk, and that's the emphasis specific that we're removing the documentation over here, but we don't have to remove the Shavua because the Shavua never applied in the first place. Und das ist der Diuk im Asircha ha'ivrim v'apsochim. Tzlomim shekos v'aleim es hashvua. The tzelems on which they wrote the Shvua. Da hat sich nicht gefordert zu Meister sein die Shvua atzma. Here was not a requirement just to remove the Shvua itself. The Shvua is b'lavachi bottle. The Shvua is regardless negated. Tokvo is husa. The force has been removed. The force of the Shvua. The Eberster gave us the commanded Torah. There's no Medaf nor Meister sein die Tzlomim. You have to, Kimesircha, darf noch messen, die Slome, welches ist verschrieben geworden, die Schwur, zum Wattel sein, you have to remove, man darf nur messen sein, die Slome, welches ist verschrieben geworden, die Schwur, we got to remove the sales on which it was written down. Zum Wattel sein, dem Chilul, Hashem Shebedover, to negate the desecration of the name shame of the matter. Okay, so that's why Rashi brings it down to explain how come it was actually done. However, Sof Sof is of a fortnit glatik. I will explain now why we bring down Pirkei de Rabbi Lezer. Sof Sof is of a fortnit glatik. It's still not understood. Bald as einen given lebediki yivusim. There are yivusim alive. Welchom yekivus for their shvur that knew about the shvur. Unam gesagt Daviden, and they said in the Loitove Heinoki Masircha Goimer, don't come here, but you should remove. Is klape zay, they knew about it. So what did it help to remove the evidence, the documentation of the Ivrim and the Pischim? What did it, how did that help? But for those that were there, the Faris Rashi Mitzayin to Pirkei de Rabbi Lezer. That's why he references the Pirkei de Rabbi Lezer. In Pirkei de Rabbi Lezer, Nogdem vezver der Zelt wegen Shvus Avram b'chulu. After it relates about the Shvu of Avram, etc., steht dort, V'achakach kono David asir haivusi Yisrael. So then David, after all this discussion with the Yevusim, he actually purchased it. B'ksava ilom lachuz with a eternal writing for an eternal inheritance. Sheish Meir Shcholim paid the 600 shekels. B'bal David od koinig ven ira Yevusi b'kesef moli. Since he purchased the city of the Yevusi with full money, hat das in ganzem Mevatel gewinnt. So then this negated totally, welches is his taina from the Yevusi of Yerushalayim. Any sort of argument of the Yevusi about the city of Yerushalayim, now it was paid for. And finally, the Rebbe says, now, Tes, Apikol, Anal Yishlevayer, based on all the bus, we can explain, Favos Rashi, bring the Maimer B'Shem Emre of Shuben Korcha. Why does Rashi bring the author of the statement of Shuben Korcha? Because a Talmud, the Mulach can doch fragen, you have a sharp student, he can ask, since the Yid has the mitzvah to eat the mais and kochim, wie wird masber sein, sich, how will he explain himself, was is an onus, und kennet gegen Yerushalayim, that he is against his will, he has no choice, and he can't go to Yerushalayim, und der Far, he's not allowed to eat it at all. He can't fulfill the mitzvah at all because he can't make it there. He's an onus. How does he explain to himself? Dr. Rashi, as the Maimer hat gesagt, Rabbi Shua ben Korcha. He said it, Rabbi Shua ben Korcha, from the Bavuste Mamorim of Rabbi Shua ben Korcha, the known sayings of Rabbi Shua ben Korcha is the Maimer. He says, Lama kodma parsha Shema le'v'hoyim shemoyah. Why does the parsha Shema come before v'hoyim shemoyah? First you accept the yoke of heaven, and then then you accept the yoke of mitzvahs. Which explains in our matter. Before you have the yoke and accept mitzvahs, darpa im frier sein the kabbalas el malchus shamayim. He needs to first accept the yoke of the heaven, them oil from melech malcham loch makadosh baruch hu. The yoke of the King of Kings, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was that ongezogt leisucha lechel b'shorecha, goimer kim lifnei Hashem Elokecha tichlen b'makom shivcha Hashem Elokecha. This is what the Eibishter said. You're not allowed to eat it in your only for Hashem. So if you're an onus, well, you want to eat it. How do you explain it to yourself? No explanation. Accept it. This is what Rabbi Shua ben Korcha, and this is what is hinted by his name, and this is Sichos Shabbos Parshas Reeh, Tovshin Chav Zayin.